you make your arm longer, so you can. That's another thing. You can reach places where you couldn't reach by yourself. Back pain, like my whole life. You have to hold the spoon, and that you can hold it in different angles, and
that makes sense.
it's like a self-investigation journey. Because I was really sick of this process. It was very boring for me, and that's the reason it's a very gentle technique, because there's no force or something. It's only for control to push into the muscle. I always was very interested in like medical stuff, because also my mother was a massage therapist.
All right, welcome. We are here. This is Rise Up and Carve, and we are here with Jasmin, and we are discussing the most recent RUAC Spoon Challenge template number 45, which is a design that came from Jasmin. And basically, it's a spoon-shaped type object. But it's not necessarily a typical spoon used for eating. It is used for spinal manipulation and for basically assisting in relieving, I guess, aches and pains would be a good way of putting it. Before we delve down into this too deeply, though, I do want to give a disclaimer. We are not doctors. We are not medical professionals in any way, shape, or form. So obviously, take what you hear here and do your own research, and make sure that you are comfortable with anything that you attempt or want to do in terms of using this tool. But basically what we want to hear from Jasmin is how she came up with the design for this and how she utilizes it for her own health enhancement. And then we can take from that and utilize it in whatever way, shape, or form each of us finds appropriate. So with that, Jasmin, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came up with this design, a little bit about what, how it fits into how it's used, etc. Yeah.
So the design wasn't my invention.
Okay.
I got to know this technique through other people who had this tool. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. I had like back pain like my whole life. and I thought, okay, I want to try it out. And it's from, and there's a woman who like invented this shape, but I didn't mention her so much because she's like into she's using it in a manner I don't like too much, because she's like this is the only way to heal and everything.
Okay.
And that's not my thing. That's the reason I haven't mentioned her so far, but it's her design. And it's like I can show you with this one. It has a ball on one side and the spoon on the other side. And you have here like stopping, angles. Like then you can push with your finger.
Okay.
You have more control to push into the muscle. And you can use it like in different manners. You can use it as a massage tool when you have like tension and blocks in the muscles, to relieve it a bit, like this way. Yep. And when I use when I want to release the muscle, I would use more the ball because it's more soft. It's more. This is really a sharp tool. Yeah. For the body. Like, yeah. But yeah, and that's. And this is what you would do at the beginning to relax the muscles, to go into the pain, but not too deep. And then the other side is it's like a technique to put the bones or the spine into the right order again when something is like went out of the place.
Yeah.
And then usually they stretch the body, and I don't know, I have to look for a word. It's like usually you dislocate the spine and do it with force. With many manual techniques are like this, but this one is like you're holding, you're supporting the bone.
Yeah.
You can do it with every jaw, with every bone, and maybe you feel something here, and then you would support the bone on the side and not on the bone, only on the side, and then you start moving it. And
okay.
You can do it with the spine as well. I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or maybe, yeah. Or maybe when you.
That was fine. We were able to see if you turned around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, you have to feel where's the bone. And
Yeah.
Then you go beneath the bone, and you hold it like this, and then you start moving, and you hear when you have like problems there, then it makes. But yeah, and then you start to move the spoon along the spine very gently, like this.
Okay.
And this.
So it's basically it's a mechanism by which you're able to help move the vertebrae back into proper alignment.
Yeah,
but you're not moving the tool, you're moving your muscles, and the tool is holding the vertebrae.
Yes, you could use it as a massage tool, but actually it's not a massage tool, and you are not on the bones or something, you're only supporting. And that's the reason it's a very gentle technique, because there's no force or something. It's only supporting, and the body in the movement can like
realign it,
place again. So
gotcha. It strikes me as very similar. The chiropractor, I had a ruptured disc in my lower back between L4 and L5, and I had surgery to have the disc removed. Thankfully, I was young enough and, at that point in time had enough muscle mass that they did not fuse the two vertebrae. So I didn't lose too much range of motion, although I've never been the most flexible person in the world. So, and as I've aged, I've gotten less flexible. But the chiropractor that I've gone to over the years, his father, Pavia was the last name, Pavia. He was the inventor of a tool called the activator. And it's basically a small handheld plunger.
Yeah, I have this. This is from the same people, maybe.
Exactly. And
yeah, I have the activator, and this you can use also for releasing the muscles. And when you release the muscles with the activator, they move easier. So it's even less force for the spine when you use the spoon. They're like. They are like, they are team players.
Yeah, well, his father was the one who designed and developed the activator, and so he, and that's why we specifically had gone to that family for their chiropractic, only because I was never a big fan. I had gone to other chiropractors that do a lot of the, manual manipulation and all of that, and they're right. And there are times that I just found that was very. It felt overly aggressive, and
yes, I did the same. And you get addicted to it, even it's releasing, and then the bones pop again to the wrong place, and then you have to go every week.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I always liked going to Pavia with the activator method, because it was very targeted. and it was not painful, and he put everything back into alignment, and it worked great. It's kept me in basically pain-free, you know, for the most part, ever since I was in my 20s. This happened when I was 19, when I ruptured the disc. So I've dealt with it, you know, for 40 years. But yeah, awesome. Okay. So the actual design of this then is not your design. You made yourself a copy of this other person's design, and this is how you're using it.
Yeah, maybe it changed a bit, but more or less it's the same.
Yeah, a flat disc on one side and a sphere on the other.
I have this one, which is a little bit bigger than this one, but this is broken. Sadly, it's broken, so I never use it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so all right.
Also, when I started to make them, I had also a small one, which is actually my design. It's something different. It's not a spoon anymore.
Yeah.
This is very practical for the neck because it's very short, and then you can put it into your bag and you can do it like really fast.
Gotcha. So now let me ask you a question. Where did you learn the methodology for using this?
I don't know. I made a learning. I learned metal work. It was like
No. I don't mean the methodology for making the tool. I mean the methodology for using it.
It was a hand work. So I learned like metal work. And worked in restoration, and so I had like the spirit of there's something I want to do it, and somehow I invent how I will do it like by myself.
Wait, no, but I mean the therapy methodology itself.
Therapy method.
Where did you learn that?
Okay. Yeah, it's like I saw videos from this woman, which are not too bad. When you leave out that she's like making guru stuff and so on, it's very simple. Like she's showing on the spine where you have to hold the spoon, and that you can hold it in different angles, and then you can do it on the spine, and how they're called you can work on the spinosus process, but you can also work on the transverse process. So you would, for example, do it. The one on the spinosus is like here, and the other is like here, and then you go the whole line down on this line.
Okay.
And you always, I forgot before, you always move the parts of the body where you are with your spoon. So when I'm here, I move my head. When I go down, I start to move my shoulders. When I'm here on the thorax bone, then I would move the thorax and so on. And I always was very interested in like medical stuff, because also my mother was a massage therapist.
Okay.
And it was like I had always like muscle problems, and the therapist never achieved to find like the real problem.
Gotcha.
And so I tried by myself to discover how are the muscles, where are my pains, and how I can manipulate it and get like more more autonomy and this helps also to talk to doctors when you know how to describe what you have.
Right. And what relieves it versus what exacerbates it, etc.
Yeah. And then I could we can save time with the doctor, because very much time we were working on one process because there was maybe pain here, and then there worked here, but in reality it was because of something here. And
out of alignment, right?
So
that makes sense.
It's like a self-investigation journey.
Could you do me a favor? Could you send me a couple links to some of the videos that you found particularly helpful?
Yes.
I'll put them in when we post this video. I'll put the links to those videos in as well.
I only want to say there's a disclaimer, because the woman, she does a lot of woohoo stuff, and but when you are like responsible, you can differentiate. You can say, okay, I only take those videos from her which are really, and you and don't think about, she says things like, oh, when you don't do it, you will be in the wheelchair or stuff like this.
Gotcha. Okay.
Really not my thing. And
hyperbolic statements.
And you so but
to learn the method,
quite good. And she also treats like world-class surf sport people. They people who are really injured after a competition or something, and then they do fix the joints, and afterwards they can continue the competition. And so
great. Well, hopefully she helped Christian Pulisic go USA. Sorry, World Cup fan. All right. So now why don't you tell us a little bit then about how you go about making this tool?
So at first I started to do it like taking a piece of wood, sawing it out with a saw, and then putting it into a how it's called, a clamp? No.
A vise,
A vise, yes. And then I used a file to do everything.
Okay.
And at the end, you could say it was like manual turning, because I used like the file like a turning tool. Only I moved it from time to time. So like I could achieve the round form.
Gotcha.
And basically it's like you're making cuts here on some places, and then you're filing like this. It's like turning. And
I was gonna say it's definitely a shape that like screams to be put, done on like a pole lathe or a regular lathe.
I think when I would start with the pole lathe turning, I will make some more. Because at the end it's a bit exhausting to do it with axe and knife. You can do it, but it's not so pleasurable like doing a normal spoon. So
let me ask you a question. The hump in the middle, is there a purpose to the hump in the middle as opposed to just having it straight? Is it because it's easier to hold?
It's easier to hold. It's
okay.
And when it's like you have your hand, like this. And then you have a resistance here.
Gotcha.
And then you have the other resistance that you can really. The technique lives from very good support. You have to, everything has to be very firm. When you're like this, nothing happens. So it's like you're holding it strong, and then you start moving the body. Maybe when I would have a problem here, you can hold, for example, you can hold it like this. And then you start moving this area, and you can do it from different angles, maybe from here. And when you're like this, you can't. When you would be like this, you couldn't support the joint, and nothing would happen. So you need always to stay very firm.
It's interesting. It reminds me too. There's another methodology for hands and for feet especially, they uses differing size balls, and the balls vary in hardness. So
Yes.
there's a softer version and then a hard version. And basically you put the ball down on a flat surface and then you roll your hand over the ball in
Yes.
various motions. And it's called the melt method. And it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
But what this does is it allows you to use it for other parts of the body.
Yeah.
Whereas this, you can really only practically, I mean, I'm sure you can find ways to do it on like the arm, the forearm, the wrists, things like that.
Yeah,
It's just, it's a
you
little
can,
bit.
yeah, I can. The good
Right.
thing is you make your arm longer, so you can. That's another thing. You can reach places where you couldn't reach by yourself. So
Yeah.
when I'm having problems here, I can hold it also like this and
Yep.
and do this and do this. And
Yep.
like this. So
Yep.
you can what I like is to use balls and rolls.
Yep.
And because you with the rolls, it's like you putting the whole back into place, and then when you are more like a bit straightened up, you can use this to go into detail.
Yeah.
So you can use the different tools
Yep.
to
Complementary
steps, like the relaxer, or how you call it, activator to release the muscles. Then you would go maybe with a roll to fix the whole position a bit. And then when you notice, and when I go into the straight position, where is the blockage? Yeah. And then you go straight to the blockage with this one or this one in the movement.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now back to your methodology. So that was the first way you did it, was with, you cut it out with a saw, you cut out the basic form with a saw, then you used a file and sandpaper to shape it. So now, have you done it with carving tools as well? Yes,
it was like a coincidence that I found a spoon carving video from Barn, and I was like, oh yes, I made a spoon, and keep making a spoon with the eggs, and that's amazing. Because I was really sick of this process. It was very boring for me. And the first process, how I did it before, it was like the hell of, boredom.
Yeah, gotcha.
And weeks of doing it. And I was like, oh no, I only did a few ones for me and for my family. And then I was so sick of it. And I had a good result, but no fun doing it. Gotcha.
Yeah, not an enjoyable process.
No, and then I got and as I before I played a bit with forging, I was like, oh wow, cool. That's the X work is like forging, but you have time. And I was like, okay, so now I started to learn the spoon carving process, and then afterwards, I made a few spoons with axe and knife as well, and this is also one.
Okay.
Which I made like with axe and knife. And I think it's quite easy because you have not such difference in the angles like with a normal spoon.
Yeah.
So you pre-shape it a bit. You go to the size you want to have, and maybe you can start to pre-shape the bowl with the axe.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit from this, like maybe you would cut it until here, like this, and then make some small angles cranks here and here. But not, you don't need so much, a bit like a wave maybe.
Yeah. Interesting.
and then I would start to carve with a knife, or with the, maybe you could also start with the spoon rule and
draw a knife and shave it. Yeah.
And this, I think you could do a lot of X work here to get a round bowl.
Well, you can certainly get like a faceted, like faceted from like at the end, just to kind of shape it to get to a cylinder.
That's true.
And then you just start lopping off at the sides.
Yeah, I forgot to say it. It's like you start with the square.
Yeah.
Like when you do a bowl, it's like it's forging and carving maybe the same. Like you make the square and then you make an octagon. How is it called? Whatever
the 3D version of an octagon would be.
Yes. There's like you break the corners of the square, and then you can start to round it. It
becomes like a 20-sided dice for those who are into Dungeons and Dragons. All right, excellent. All right, does anybody have any questions, anything that they would like to ask? Go ahead, Nancy. If you prefer, if you're having a hard time talking, if you want to type it into the chat, I can read it. It's up to you. If you'd prefer to try and talk, that's fine too. Just remember to unmute yourself if you're going to talk.
Could you hold it up and turn it slowly so I can see it?
Like this? Maybe I give you this one. That's a bit better.
Yeah, just rotate it slowly.
And this
awesome.
would be the other one. This is a bit more expressive, and I like this a bit thicker bowl here.
The thicker hump in the middle.
Yeah, it's broken. It's
All right, cool.
Is this more of a green wood carving or a dry wood carving?
The first ones, when I used this saw and everything, I had no idea about green wood, so I used dry wood, and but now I think I would always use green wood, because
it's just so much easier to work with. Yeah. Nancy, you had another question?
What kind of wood do you suggest to use?
What kind of wood?
I used this one was plum wood, and this is how it's called in English. A very soft one, the very, very soft one.
Like a pine?
No, not pine. Wait a moment.
I would imagine any would really.
You can use everything.
Yeah.
No problem. Linden? Limewood.
Lime, basswood is what we would call it here in the U.S.
How?
Basswood is what we would call it here in the US.
Basswood is lime. Okay.
Yeah, basswood and lime. They're not exact parallels, but they're very close.
Okay. And this is chestnut.
Okay.
And the small one is from cherry. And this, I make also this one, which is then you can go. This is also from the woman when I sent you the link. She had also this, which is like for hips correction, because it has this. I didn't do it very good. It should be wider, and this is a straight part which you can put on the wall, and then you put your hips on it, and then you can move move the hips in the with this tool. It's kind of nice too. Like
cool.
Yeah. And yeah, actually you can use all kinds of words what you like. It's not so much. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions?
I remember I forgot something to say, what we were talking before, for the technique and for the purpose. I would be always very careful to use it when you have an injury. The woman says you can use it with injury, but I think people should listen to themselves. And when there's like a warm pain, with like, yeah, maybe it's not the best one to trigger this pain in that moment. And I think the best moment is when you have like a pain from something is on the wrong place, and or maybe like when you have tension in the muscles, that would be the best indication to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Less so for an injury, more so for just like tension, aches, or if something, like you say, is something maybe you can just tell, like there's times when you slept wrong and your neck just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's like when you use this, you can and you do the whole process on the spine. You really can move your head better.
Yeah, free motion.
Like this, and then you're like this.
Yeah.
And the same with my hips, and my whole life, I wasn't able to touch my feet when I go down.
Yeah.
And after I worked on the hips and the how's called the sacrum.
Yep.
And it got more flexible, and I could go further.
Yeah, that's the way I am. I can only get down to about 6 inches from the floor.
So maybe I should give you a private lesson to you.
My hips and my hamstrings are probably some of the tightest on the planet. It sucks. Rob was going to ask something. What'd you want to ask, Rob?
Yeah, I was curious about finishing, and what do you use for that process?
Before I used only sandpaper, very fine sandpaper, and then oil. I think before, when I had no idea, I used coconut oil. And these days I would use the same oil and process like with my normal spoons, like burnishing it with stones, and my I use also like these kind of tools for metal work, like copper work. They're called punches.
Yep.
For burnishing, and then I use tung oil and walnut oil for my spoon.
Yeah, are you familiar with burnishing, Rob?
I am not familiar with burnishing. That's something new to me. I was
burnishing is basically just taking a hard device and rubbing the wood with it, and
like this.
Yeah.
And it's not like you are not destroying the surface which you have done with the knife. It stays the same, and only like pressing the fibers together, and it's like a polish.
Yeah, it compresses the fibers and it smooths it down a lot.
Yeah, and it gets shiny and everything.
Yeah.
Would you do that after you put the tongue oil or different oil on it, or would
first.
You do it you can actually do it in between as well. Don Naligetti, one of our members on here, he's probably the most knowledgeable person on the planet that I know of about finishing oils. He's got very lengthy, like hour-long, chemical, detailed descriptions of how hardening oils work on YouTube. He's gone to Spoonfest and all that. And so he recommends you do very light coats. Don't do a heavy coat. Some people will soak their spoons in oil. He thinks that that's wrong. You want to just do a very light coat, let it harden, and then burnish it, and then do another very light coat, let it harden, burnish it, and then do a final, light coat and let that dry. So, because what happens is as the finishing oil dries, the surface actually ripples slightly. And so if you burnish in between, even after the oil has dried, it helps to bring that back down, and it gives it a much finer luster to the wood.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Now, one of the, just in terms of finishing, that Dawson, who does like Michigan Sloyd.
Yep.
Kiln dries stuff, I think.
Yeah.
For his, like, what is that about? Like, is that literally like a pottery kiln?
No, basically there's three, I think it's three basic components or aspects, if you will, to how these finishing oils dry, as I understand it. And again, I am not an expert on this, but this is just my understanding from what I've picked up over the years. There's airflow, so there's oxygen getting to the oil and interacting with the oil to change its chemical composition. There's light, ultraviolet light, that has a play in it, and then to a lesser extent there's heat, right? And so you're not heating these to the point that they're going to cook. It's basically, when he talks about a kiln, it's basically usually like a UV light bulb, like a high UV light bulb inside a box that allows for airflow. So you typically want to have like a small computer fan creating airflow in the box. And then the bulb itself throws off a certain amount of heat, but you're not getting it like, pottery kiln, like, you're just, it's, maybe, low, mid 100 Fahrenheit,
Oh, wow.
So all three of those aspects, some people will simply take their spoons and put them in a window where they get direct sunlight and the warmth from the sun and then airflow, around it. And then there are a lot of people who would argue you don't need to use a finishing oil at all, that you could literally, like the spoons themselves over time are going to pick up a patina on their own. Yeah.
And when you do that, have you ever not finished it, Jasmin?
What?
Have you ever not finished it in just burnishing alone?
And maybe this one, I don't remember very well, because this, I don't use it too much because it turned out very thin. And this one, I think, has no oil, but the chestnut got so hard and firm, and with the burnishing, it's also shiny.
Right.
Yeah,
there's certain woods, like any of the like hard fruit woods, like plum or even cherry. But yeah, any of like the chestnut, or probably even like a hickory or something like that would burnish so well that you really almost don't need an oil. Alan, are you sharing your screen for a reason?
No.
Sorry,
It's
no.
not me, it's Alan.
No, I wanted to show you that I put my spoons, and I missed the picture, in my car on the dashboard. So I live in a quite warm country, and I believe in my car it's getting more than 100 Fahrenheit.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you could put them in a car. Yeah.
And they are not baking, so the wood doesn't change color, or the oil is not burning. But still, I have quite a good sunlight and airflow because I'm driving my car, as you could see before. and I like the odor of the tank oil in my car. So.
Interesting. All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to draw this to a close. I'm going to stop the recording. Jasmin, thank you very much. Appreciate your time to explain this to us. And we look forward to seeing what people come up with at our show and tell next weekend. So we'll see you in 1 week.
Yeah.
All right.
Next week.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.